The Traffic, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Commission. Did we hear from Mr. Sorrells or Mr. Teeters? Did anybody hear from them?
Is there someone waiting to get in? He's online.
Is he online?
Yeah, Sterl's online and Peters is online.
Oh, they're both online, okay.
Yeah.
We'll wait till they get hooked up here.
Dan, Patrick, can you hear us? Dan, Patrick, can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, then we have all members present. If that could be noted. Approval of the agenda. I would say if we could bring item 6, because I see we have Alder Galvin here and some of his constituents, I believe. If we could take number 6 at the beginning of regular business, would that be okay? Any objection? Okay. If not, so moved. Approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? The ayes have it. Approval of the minutes of July 17th. Is there a motion to approve?
Yep, gotcha.
Second.
There's a motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay? The ayes have it. Item number 6. Consideration and possible action on the request of Alder Galvin to change two-way stop condition on Irwin and Eliza Street to four-way stop condition. Alder, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. First of all, let me say I appreciate the indulgence of this committee, letting me have another kick at the can here, so to speak. A number of things came up. My constituent, the one I'm working with, had a medical issue that he had to leave town to have addressed. I got tied up with family stuff. There was, so I understand some frustration on your parts. But I feel that my constituent has a valid point. He's done a lot of work, and I told him it would be up to him to do a lot of footwork. He's done some research. He's found some historical evidence showing that this route at one time was a four-way stop. And then also he went out and went to many of his neighbors to tell them what he was looking to do and got them to sign a petition, which, to me, if it's just one guy, I can kind of hesitate at that, but when you've got a neighborhood that gets behind it, then I think we need to give it some weight. And Dan Johnson is here to address you and tell you what he's found out.
Okay, great. Is there a motion to open the floor?
Motion to open the floor.
Second.
Okay,
Moved and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? The ayes have it. Sir, would you introduce yourself and tell your address for the record?
My name is Dan Johnson, and the address is 1003 South Irwin Avenue. It's the corner of Irwin and Eliza.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I bought this house when I came down with cancer in 2 spots, and I thought I better look for a house because, we lived in Madison at the time, and I have a son who's both blind and deaf. He also has osteoarthritis and a number of other health issues, all caused because his mother had German measles when she was pregnant. I actually found him tied to a bed in an institution in Texas 33 years ago, and I went through the courts and adopted him, and have seen after his needs ever since. And I always thought, to be perfectly honest, that I was going to outlive him because he has a lot of health issues. Besides being 100% blind and 100% deaf, he's very rare in that sense. So when I came down with cancer, I thought, well, I'm going to have to find a place. So I looked around Madison where we lived, and it was just too expensive. But Green Bay was very reasonable. I found this house online, came up the next day, and put an offer in that day. And the people that were selling it said, well, if you offer this much, it's a little bit of a bidding war. If you offer this much, you'll get it. So I did. And that was nice of them to do that, and I put it in a trust for Johnny. And things have been going good. I've been fixing it up for him and dealing with cancer at the same time. But the thing is, there's a high rate of traffic and speed on the side of the house. And Johnny, because of osteoarthritis, he cannot navigate fast at all. And so with he and Leo as service dog, it's an accident waiting to happen. And it almost, there was a real close call. And fortunately, a police officer was there for that close call and said, you really need to do something and get a four-way stop. So that's what started this. Historically, it used to be a four-way stop. There was a bus line, and the bus line didn't want to stop there, so they asked for it to be changed, and it was. And I'd like to see it change back so that he's safer.
Okay,
That would help me a lot.
okay.
That's.
Questions from the commissioners?
There's two others that also wanted to speak.
Okay, sure. Again, if you could just identify yourself and
Sure.
your address, that'd be great.
My name is Blake Rolikowski, and I live at 1015 South Irwin Avenue. I am the neighbor on the same side of the street. He came to me, and I agreed with him. It should be. There's times when I pull out of my driveway, being on the second house down, I pull up that stop sign, cars are flying by at 35 miles an hour. Shouldn't be that. Speed limit's not even 35, it's 25. So therefore, it's just, even when I'm pulling up, you have to watch for cars coming out of that. A lot of high traffic with people that are walking their dogs that are in there, in our neighborhood. There's probably about 15, 20 different people I see passing my house every day walking their dogs. It's just, I think it's, for all of us, it's just gonna be a safer route for people going in and out. Plus the park is right there. There's no reason to speed up to that park. What's happened at the park, we have events that happen there too. Somebody's speeding up there, oh, they missed that stop sign. They keep rolling right through Roosevelt. That intersection can have that. So I'm just kind of seeing off of both his site, from having somebody that is handicapped, even having a sign that they're, having somebody that says blind and deaf area as well. That's gonna make people slow down and impede on how they're driving, but a stop sign is gonna make them stop,
Yeah.
right? It's not gonna just have them be, okay, we're gonna kind of slow down here. No, this is gonna make them stop. So, and I didn't know that he found out about the historical thing, but if it was already set in stone at one point and got taken away, and now we're seeing this reoccur for a reason, I think we should put it back in place. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes?
Yeah, I'm Vicki Walton, and I live at 1280 Liza Street, right across the street from Dan, right on the corner. And I live on the upstairs where I have a balcony, and I see these cars going, and I yell to them, slow down, because they are going so fast. And that's an intersection there. Sure, there's no stop sign, but they keep going. There's cars I've seen in several corners that don't have a four-way stop get hit because they pull out of the stop sign when the car's going too fast. So, and I've lived there for 4 years, and I totally agree on that also for Dan's son and other people as well. So,
Okay.
and I've seen a lot happen, and then right on my corner, I live in the upstairs apartment. I look out my kitchen window and I see cars parked there, and I was told from the neighbor upstairs, they live upstairs, they saw drugs being dealt back and forth on that corner, parked on my side of the street on Irwin there. And my neighbor said, well, make sure you mention, we can't go to the meeting, but make sure you mention that we were witness to see that these drugs are being exchanged, or whatever the case may be. I have no clue what goes on with that, but yeah, so I don't know if that would have anything to do with the stop sign, but I'm just putting that in our corner.
And I'd like
We
to
don't-
just reiterate on that too, and have it written in that a few years ago I had called in because I had seen something happening at nighttime in regards to that corner. So it's not the first time. I just happened to hear about this today before we came here, and she had mentioned that this happened only a few days ago.
Yeah.
But I had called in probably about maybe a year or two ago in that same spot. So obviously there's a presence of something happening right there, and you know what I mean, so. And not in conjunction with that, but it's, like you said, just something that should be said and dealt
And
with.
that's a really nice neighborhood.
Absolutely.
I live on Short Street, so I'm
Yeah.
not too far away from you folks.
No,
One of the
and
people-
it's a
Very
great
nice.
neighborhood, and we love our neighborhood, but I just
Yes.
think, when it comes to the traffic pattern, I think that that could be something that we would like to address and, come to a consensus on.
And just a few days ago, I would say maybe 4 days ago, there was a car that went onto Dan's property, just missed his fence, and I was watching from my kitchen window, 3 guys got out of the car, and she backed off, because she went almost into the fence, backed up and went to the corner, stop sign there. 3 guys took and walked away, and she stopped there, and she's using language like you wouldn't want to know, and took off. When Dan turned on his lights, he heard it too. This was in the middle of the night.
Okay.
When he turned on his lights, I was happy because that's when they departed then,
Okay.
so.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to say anything on this?
Concerning that,
on this
concerning
item?
that thing? Or-
On this issue? Okay.
Thank you.
Let me ask Steve, do we have a blind and deaf sign that we can put up there too?
We do not. The city several years ago put a moratorium in on those types of signs. We do not have them anywhere in the city any longer.
Okay,
I did speak to the ADA, and they said those signs don't really do much.
okay. Okay. Is there a motion to go back into regular session?
I'll make a motion.
It's been moved by several people. Is there a second?
A second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Okay.
Opposed,
Aye.
opposed nay, the ayes have it.
So my first,
Okay,
sorry, my first question is maybe for Steve, because I also live in that neighborhood, and I'm probably one of the dogs walking by you. There really is a serious speeding problem, so I didn't know from the city end if there was any reason not to go forward with this.
This is gonna make me one of probably the most unpopular person in the room. What we typically look at is warrants for intersection control. The 2 biggest warrants we look at are safety related, one being crashes and one being volumes on the number of vehicles. This intersection is substantially below the warrants for both of those criteria, which is why the stop sign came out in the first place. I'm sure you've heard it from traffic engineer Hanson. When he was here, it's one of the things we discuss on a very frequent basis. Unwarranted traffic control signs, especially stop signs and yields, actually have the opposite effect that you would think, because people feel unnecessarily delayed. There's no reason for this stop sign to be here. They think that that put them behind where they would have been had that stop sign not been there. So when they leave the stop sign, they go extra fast to make up for that perceived lost time. So staff recommendation is it does not meet warrants, and we simply look at the engineering behind things, okay? I understand there's a lot of emotion, but that's not what we deal with. We deal with science. So our recommendation, based on the lack of meeting warrants, is to remain as is.
And Steve, can I just ask you a quick question?
Is this
Did
Dan?
did the neighborhood or any individual apply for a traffic calming study? Because this seems to kind of fit the bill for the city's traffic calming procedure.
I do not know of any applications for neighborhood traffic calming in this area.
Okay, and I guess as somebody who has actually gone through that process myself, I would encourage it, because it does sound like there's a perceived speeding and safety issue here. That's exactly what that policy or program is designed to identify and correct. I would encourage the neighborhood to look into that procedure or that process and go ahead and apply for it.
That's a very good suggestion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are there any other solutions or things people have done since they don't use the blind and deaf signs in neighborhoods anymore?
Probably the next most requested or most popular is exactly what Dan just suggested, would be to apply for neighborhood traffic calming. We've had several neighborhoods I think less than 10 citywide, but there are several of the neighborhoods who have looked into it at least.
Dan, for the benefit of the audience, could you explain what traffic calming is?
Sure, neighborhood traffic calming is a series, it starts off with a study, and then there are a series of techniques that could be implemented that help slow traffic down. One of them is narrowing of the streets, so there could wind up being bump outs, especially at the intersections, that narrow that distance that a pedestrian would have to cross. And by narrowing the distance, you really only have the through lanes. You eliminate the parking lanes near the corners. Those are areas that can't be parked in anyway due to site obstruction or site triangle, division triangle, seeing a vehicle on the opposite intersecting street. By narrowing the street down to just the traffic lanes, it causes a motorist to feel squeezed in, and instinctively they're going to slow down in that area anyway. One of the other more popular techniques that has been utilized is what's referred to as a speed table. So if you were to travel on Farland Avenue immediately west of Elizabeth, or, God, I'm coming up with a blank.
There's a couple over near Dan's.
Yeah, the first two streets immediately east of Dan's Avenue coming south off of University. Peters and, when the new festival development went in on University Avenue, that caused a lot of bypass traffic to start going through those neighborhoods, and those neighbors applied for and received traffic calming, and the speed tables also went in there. A speed table is about 6 to 8 inches tall. It's kind of a trapezoid in nature, so it's not just a speed bump. It actually has a ramp up, a flat spot on the top, and a ramp back down. They are very uncomfortable to travel over at speed. So those are two of the more
You see them in bigger
type of
cities.
outcomes that come from a traffic study for neighborhood traffic calming.
And to get the traffic calming study, the neighborhood would sign a petition and apply to your department.
There is actually a form online that's available to initiate a traffic calming study. I can definitely work with Alder Galvin to help initiate that process should the neighbors be interested in pursuing something like that.
Could I say something?
Well, no, we would have to
Open the floor.
reopen the floor.
I got a couple, one
Tom?
question and one comment. Do either of those traffic calming devices, like the bump outs or the speed humps, do they present any problems with plowing?
No.
Okay. And then the second thing that I would say as a comment is, I think the stop sign at that intersection is set up properly because Irwin is a much wider street in that area, and people tend to drive faster on the nice wide street. And so I think having the stop sign on Irwin stops the traffic that is potentially going faster than the traffic on Eliza at that intersection. It's been my experience that the wider the street, the more people feel comfortable going fast. So I think by having, I think it's set up correctly right now that the faster street has to stop at that intersection.
Good. Any other comments? Mr. Teeters, Ms. Sorrow, any other comments from you gentlemen?
Nope.
I did have a question. Was there some history that this was a four-way stop? How many years ago, or?
I don't know how long ago that was removed. It primarily came off after the bus stop, or after the bus route was rerouted.
Okay.
Oh, what is the pleasure of the commissioners?
Do you want to reopen for comment?
Oh, we could, if you want, go ahead.
I'm going to make a motion to reopen the floor for our guests.
Been moved and seconded to open the floor for further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I did contact Dave Hansen by email twice. I never heard anything back. But I also contacted, and I can't remember who, and they said that a study says there's not enough traffic to warrant this. And I said, well, when was that study done? And they couldn't give an answer. So then I contacted the ADA and said that, you know, their reasoning is there isn't enough traffic to warrant this. And they said, but their reasoning is flawed because when you're dealing with someone who's blind and deaf and has osteoarthritis, that takes that out of consideration because all it takes is one accident. It doesn't take any number of cars, it just takes one car to put him in his grave. So that's why I find that reasoning flawed.
So you would prefer not to do the study with possible permanent structure or physical changes to the intersection, which would solve the problem permanently?
No, what I'm saying is, it could be a stop sign, it could be the trapezoid thing that causes them to slow down. I think that a traffic study, the ADA is right. All it takes is one to cause damage that's irreparable. And I think that no matter how many people are using it, it just takes one to speed and cause grave injury. I've had to pull him out of harm's way more than once. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And he's not going anywhere. The house is in a trust for him. He'll be there for years and years and years.
But you do understand, if you do the study, the traffic calming study, and we do some physical changes to the intersection, that would be even more effective in solving your problem than a stop sign. That's the bottom line.
Yes. Yes,
So
but what I'm saying is if you do the study and the study says, but there aren't enough people to warrant the parameters of, and the parameters are a subjective thing. So
we did it at my
if
street.
there's a study that's done and it says, well, the parameters say there's not enough traffic to warrant that, then what happens?
Well, you could come back to this commission and we could do the stop sign route.
But all that time, during all that time, Johnny's life is in danger.
Well, I understand that.
And
but
that's what worries.
I wish we could do it a little faster, but we can't.
You mind if I speak?
Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
Dan?
Go ahead.
Yeah, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Yes.
Just
Dan?
so you have a little bit of information, I did double check the WisDOT traffic counts. It's a local road, they don't have locally available traffic counts there, so we don't have any information. Actually doing the study would gather additional information for city staff to be able to make a formal recommendation through that study. And some of it, some of it is information that would be good for us to have as well, to be able to make a decision, so.
Yeah, because for myself, that's what my question I was going to ask was, when was the last time any study was actually done in that area? Because I would like to go that route, knowing that at least those are the options, because I have seen those in bigger cities where it does make you slow down, because if you go fast over there, your vehicle is going to bounce. I know a stop sign is ultimately something we would like to go at, but if that's going to make it to where traffic does slow down, I'm all for at least having that as an option.
Well,
with
that's
that.
the thing.
You know what I mean? I think a study is the best route to go for, because it's in the best interest of not only us gathering more information as a city, but also feeling what's going on here, making that actual area some kind of, presence in our city of, something that we could do to develop in other areas as well. Because obviously you guys have already done it in some other areas, especially behind Festival, you said was one of them. Absolutely,
And then
I'm all in
it
favor
could
for that.
potentially fix more blocks than just that
Yes,
one corner.
yes.
So it might just
And that's what
make
I'm saying, it might not
that
just be
yes,
that, it might
safer.
give, you guys a lot more information to be able to go through that area and maybe reroute some of those areas, because we are growing as a city. We're gonna have more people moving in, going more traffic in that. So it's kind of one of those things we need to start stepping in and doing that for the greater good for everybody here, so.
Speeding is a big problem throughout
Yeah.
the city. Is there a motion to go back into closed session?
I'll make the motion.
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
nay. The ayes have it. Alder Stevens, I understand you have a motion to make.
Yes, I would make a motion to hold this four-way stop and this commission grant that we can move forward with the study.
Traffic.
Study, yep.
Dan, you want to second that?
Sure, yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. Any further
Although
discussion?
I do think that that study, that's got to, the petition does have to be started by the neighbors.
No, doesn't have to.
I'm
doesn't?
not
Oh, okay.
100% sure on that.
Okay, we'll check that out. And Steve, could you or somebody on your staff, when we have that answer, get back to Mr. Johnson?
Absolutely.
Okay.
From past experience.
I think the
My
city
residents,
council
yeah,
can,
and we can.
just overrule the
Yeah.
petition, right?
Yeah.
I would think so. Okay, we'll check that out.
A couple years ago,
Okay.
I bypassed all of that.
Okay. Well, that would speed it up and maybe we can get that done this fall, yeah. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hang on,
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, I'm sorry,
wait.
Mr. Soros.
hang on. So I'm not sure what was the motion again? I'm sorry.
Motion to
Can you
hold
repeat that?
Sure. Motion was to hold the four-way stop condition until a traffic study is performed.
So we're moving ahead with the four-way stop.
No.
No,
Moving ahead with the study.
Study.
we're gonna do the study
Oh, no.
first, and then if it comes back, we need to make some changes in the intersection, we can do that, which would be a permanent, more effective way to solve the problem. And if that doesn't come back, that it's warranted to have some physical changes to the intersection, we then could come back and talk about the four-way stop.
Okay.
All right? All in favor signify by saying aye.
I'm sorry, one
Oh.
more issue. How long will, assuming that the folks get this study, presented and moved along, how long does that take then?
And if it's going to be anything untoward, if there's going to be an excessive amount of time that would push this into, say, next year, as soon as I have those answers, especially if there's anything that would create unreasonable delay in completing the study, we will advise you of that as soon as possible in case you wish to make go in a different direction.
Okay, that's fair.
So it would be like 90 days or?
Offhand, I don't know, I don't do these studies.
Okay.
That's something that Mr. Hanson used to take care of, so
Okay.
I'm
I mean,
kind of
just for
learning
the
a little bit
audience, I'd like
myself.
to at least have an idea of what the length of time it would be.
Okay, anything else? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay, thank you, folks.
Thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much.
Hopefully, we'll get to the bottom of this.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Will help.
Okay, back to the regular agenda, report from the lieutenant on monthly traffic enforcement.
So traffic stops, we'll start with those in July. They're following a similar pattern to last year. A little bit higher in traffic stops. Citations are higher than they were last year by a little bit. We do have 2 of our 4 traffic officers. One's out on a personnel issue and one is out on a vacation. He's been out on vacation for a couple months now. So we are down to 2 traffic officers. That one that's on vacation will be coming back next week or the week after. So I think right when school starts, Labor Day area. So we should see an increase in traffic stops and citations and warnings along with that. The traffic crashes, as we reported, are staying pretty consistent. We had no fatalities last month. We did have some serious accidents, but only 20 injury accidents, which is a little bit low, which is a good thing. We have a lot of grant money left, so you can see there's a lot of task force coming up this month. We also have Drive Sober, Get Pulled Over campaign, which is a national campaign, and Wisconsin DOT also participates in that. That started on the 18th, and that is going all the way through Labor Day. We have several OWI task force all throughout the county going on with that. We also have every Wednesday, we have a seatbelt enforcement task force and several speed task force in there. I just got notification just the other day that we will be receiving for next year the same amount of money for OWI and seatbelt grant, but our speed task force grant is going to be increased from $60,000 to $80,000. So they're increasing it by a third, so we'll be able to do it.
State Department of Transportation?
That's from the DOT, yes.
Okay.
So we'll be able to do about a third more task force deployments for speeding next year. So a good story about Green Bay drivers in the news is that they listed us as being the best drivers in America.
Oh, wow.
That's it.
Go to that website.
Something is wrong.
You can read that story. I do have to preface this by saying that most of their data collected is about fatalities, which we are much lower than both the state and national average in fatalities per 100,000 residents, which is a great thing. We're already at 3 fatalities this year, and we average 3.4 per year. So the national average is 12.9 per 100,000, and the
Wow.
state is 10.5. So we're like a third of what the state deals with in terms of fatalities. So that is a very good thing. But that's the basis for them ranking the cities in terms of fatalities. So it
They
doesn't take
wouldn't
into
have
account a lot
that
of
rank
other-
if it was speeding.
Right. As we had talked about last month, the same areas are coming up as being the most dangerous areas for a potential injury or fatality accident are all on East Mason Street between basically every intersection between Webster and Bellevue Street. There's a lot of different factors involved in these accidents, and this is what the computer is predicting is going to be our next big area of concentration, where we're going to see a lot of injury and potentially a fatality in this area. So we are working with the traffic unit to try to come up with some ways to reduce accidents in that area. A lot of it's going to do with presence. The big problem in that area is that it's very difficult, because of the amount of traffic, for officers to, let's say, get a speeder and then to weave through traffic to catch up to that speeder, or they end up getting stopped by other factors, the red lights and whatever. So it's difficult to catch people in that area doing a lot of the things. There's also not a lot of area to pull people over. You got to pull them over pretty much on a side street or in a parking lot, which reduces the amount of visibility that they have for the deterrence for being out there. So we're trying to come up with some ways to combat the accident prevalence in that area. So I'm working with the traffic unit, and we'll see what we can come up with in the next few months.
Yeah, what is the volume of traffic in that area? It's really high. Because I live near there.
I would guess it's probably the highest in the area, in the whole area for
I'm sure.
the traffic is that and the intersection off of 41 have got to be pretty much the highest volume of traffic.
Because this number 4, analysis area number 4, I've almost been hit there twice in the last month.
Yeah, it's
So that one is really bad.
And, there's not a parking lane, there's no, like,
It's that very
shoulder,
short
it's-
cross light,
yeah.
and I don't think anyone on East Mason expects that Roosevelt light to actually be red. I mean,
yeah, and I think people are trying to beat the lights. I think there's a lot of factors involved. I think there's a lot of pedestrian traffic in that area.
Because of the hospitals.
The hospitals.
No, sure.
Bellin has their parking lots down the road there, and a lot of their workers will walk to work from their parking lots. So they're walking 3 or 4 blocks, and you'll see them in their garbs, their scrubs, walking from the parking lot to the hospital, and that creates a lot of pedestrian traffic in that area, which creates a lot of, when they hit the button to cross the street, that creates the red lights, and that creates more pedestrian movement, which people aren't expecting or watching for. And then we have just the common things, the speeding when they can, like was mentioned earlier about, a perceived they're now behind because they had to stop at another red light, and then they try to speed up to make it to the next light before it turns red. There's the problem of distracted driving and cell phones, which is always a problem.
Yeah.
So there's lots of factors involved with that area. We're gonna see what we can come up with as some areas. The major area that we're trying to do is enforcement, so we'll assign some of our task force to that area and see if we can help reduce some of the accidents.
Steve, is there any plan in the works to do something physically with that stretch of road, such as
Not-
adding lanes or something?
Not at this point.
Because it's only gonna get worse as the city grows. Yeah, that's a real problem area, wow. You folks in the audience, did you have a specific item that you wanted to talk about?
Yes, we had, we understood from Mark Stewart that the meeting was at 5:30 in a different place at second floor. So we may have other people that have gone down there because
Oh.
we didn't know. But this is regarding on the corner of Bond and Wilson.
Is it something on the agenda?
He said he had set something up.
Which agenda?
And he's on vacation, that's why he couldn't be here.
He's not here.
He's in Oregon. And
We have this on bond.
he said regarding the stop signs and the accidents in the past and in the corner of
Is there
Bond and
anything on
Wilson.
the agenda?
Not for this one.
We'll have to trace that down and get that on the agenda.
The only Stoyer one is
We
the
can't
Stoyer does.
take it up tonight legally because it's not on the agenda.
So he didn't do it on it?
I don't see,
It may be on another agenda, but it's not on this one.
yeah,
This specific meeting, it's just not on here.
yeah. So legally, we can't take it
What
up.
streets?
Bond and Wilson.
No.
Bond and Wilson.
Yeah.
We had damage, in 2 out of 3 days, there were accidents there. One was a.
Okay, ma'am, we can't take
Yeah, okay,
even
right.
testimony on something that's not on the agenda.
all right.
Legally, we can't do it.
I understand.
So you folks are
We're,
happy to go home and relax and talk to Mark and see that, make sure that it gets on the agenda for next month.
and what is the
We
date
had
of your
room
meeting next month?
207.
It should be September 18.
And it will be in this room at 5.
At 5.
Yeah.
Okay, I sent out, I made these out, took them to homes, 30 homes,
Oh,
trying to get it. I'm glad they all didn't come.
oh, we're sorry about that mix-up, but,
I'm sorry, it's not your fault.
yeah. Okay,
I just
thank
sent
you.
one to him in the mail today, so.
Okay. Items 2, 3, 4, and
No,
5.
hold on.
Thank
I'll
you.
make a motion to receive and place and file with
Sorry,
this report.
guys.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Alder Stevens, do you have
Yeah.
a motion for 2 through 5?
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules and take up items 2 through 5 with one roll call vote.
Okay, so the motion is to take in mass 2 to 5, and what is the motion to do with those?
On a hold.
Put them on hold. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
Say I can make a motion for 7 and 8 to also place a hold on file.
Okay, is there a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor by signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Any further items to come before the commission? Is there a motion to adjourn? Nobody wants to
Make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
Thank you all.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, so that was the first time we had a big group or something.
It was over on-
agenda.
It's been a long time.